Hello everyone. In today's video, I bring you an unbelievable story that will shake everything you believe about life and death. Let's meet Sara Valentina Morrow, a chef who was always skeptical, until the day she was brutally attacked at night and left clinically dead for more than 5 minutes. During this time, she had a powerful and shocking near-death experience. She left her body, encountered a divine figure, and discovered a forgotten truth about the dead, about civilizations erased from history, and about a chosen people whose wisdom was silenced. What she saw on the other side and the threats she received upon returning to life will leave you speechless. So before we start, leave your like, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any content like this, and activate the bell to receive all notifications. Now get ready for this revealing and completely out of the ordinary journey. I remember that night clearly. The restaurant's kitchen was buzzing with orders. Waiters came and went like disoriented ants, and I, in the middle of the chaos, coordinated, everything like a conductor with no time to breathe. It was my third shift in a row, and every muscle in my body was screaming for rest. When the last dish was delivered and the room finally started to empty, all I wanted was silence. I was offered a ride home, but I declined. I felt like I needed that solitary walk through the streets of New Orleans, as a way to reconnect with myself after so much running around. The night was warm, humid, and the air carried a faint scent of jasmine mixed with the odor of wet asphalt. The streets of the French Quarter were emptier than usual, something that bothered me, but I ignored it. He walked with his head down, his thoughts still stuck in the kitchen. Was that risotto a little overcooked? Did that couple notice the exchange of desserts? It was then that I felt it. A chill on the back of my neck, an invisible weight hanging over my shoulders. I looked around. Everything seemed the same, but something had changed in the air. My steps slowed. The darkness between the buildings seemed thicker. Suddenly I heard something, or thought I heard it, behind me. A snap. One breath. I turned around quickly, but there was no one. I started walking again, now a little more tense, with my senses heightened. As I turned the corner onto Chartres Street, the streetlight above flickered. It was at that exact moment that everything happened. I felt the impact. Something hard hit my head from behind. There was no time to react. Everything went white, then dark. My body fell, out of control. I heard a muffled sound, as if my ear were underwater. Footsteps approaching, hands rummaging through my bag, someone muttering something under their breath. Then, total silence. I don't know how long it took until I realized I was there, but I also wasn't there. I floated above the scene, as if something had disconnected my consciousness from my body. I looked down and saw, with disturbing clarity, my body lying on the dirty sidewalk, my head turned to the side, blood running down my temple. My eyes were half open, but lifeless. The thief, a thin man in a dark sweatshirt, was rummaging through my bag hurriedly, as if he were being watched. And it was, for me. But he didn't feel angry, not afraid, no pain. It was as if all human emotions had been left behind along with my body. All there was a deep sense of peace, a peace I had never experienced in my life, a complete acceptance, a silence without emptiness. So that was it, I thought. Dying. Is that all? The vision around me began to darken at the edges, not in a threatening way, but like when the sunlight fades at dusk. At the same time, my body, or rather, my consciousness, began to be gently pulled upward, effortless, no resistance, as if it were the natural course of things. There was no sound, but there was vibration. A soft frequency, almost like a song that I didn't hear with my ears, but with my whole being. It was as if the very fabric of the universe was calling home. The further I got from the scene of the attack, the more everything seemed small and irrelevant. The city lights, the thief running with my bag, my inert body. All of this lost importance in the face of that force that enveloped me. Then came the light. It wasn't just any light. It was a living light, conscious, as if watching me back, She seemed to know everything about me, every detail, every hidden pain, every unspoken thought. And at the same time, I accepted myself completely. It was at that moment that I felt for the first time something other than peace. One absolute love. The light surrounded me completely, but it didn't dazzle. It was like being inside a sun that didn't burn. A lively, intelligent, and welcoming presence. And then, she appeared. There was no defined face, no human features, but something about the form, the energy, was unmistakably familiar. It was like meeting someone you've always known, even if you don't remember how. The figure emerged from the heart of light. Its silhouette was made of liquid gold and pearly white, gently vibrating like the strings of an instrument played by the wind. His gaze, if I can call it that, was not made of eyes but of direct perception, and I knew. He knew everything. Without a single word being spoken, I felt as if my entire life was being read and understood. There was no judgment, just an acceptance so deep it made me cry, if I even had any tears left there. The presence transmitted to me, "You're safe, but it's not time yet." His words didn't come as sound, but as a vibration inside my mind. "Who are you?" I asked or thought about asking. The answer came before the question even formed. "I'm just a guide. There's something you need to see." And then, with a gesture made of pure intention, he led me. Not with your hands, but with the movement of your will. We begin to rise, not in height, but in frequency, in consciousness. Everything around started to change. Colors are no longer static. They vibrated, danced with each other. Space was not space as we know it. It was presence, it was living memory. "Why me?" I dared to ask. This time the answer was more direct. "Because you would never believe it, until you saw it with your own eyes." Those words were imprinted on me like a brand on a simmer. Because they were true, I wouldn't believe it. I would make fun of anyone saying that, until now. The journey was still beginning, and something inside me already knew. Nothing I knew would be able to explain what was coming. We were transported to another space, but not like someone entering a room. It was more like changing layers of reality. A veil seemed to dissolve before me, revealing something that had always been there, but that physical eyes could never see. What I saw was a transition space, calm as a pristine lake at dawn. The air, if it was air, vibrated with an almost sacred serenity. Everything was soft light, in golden and bluish tones, that moved like living mists. There were souls there, lots of. Some sitting, some standing, some floating. None of them spoke with their mouths, but they all seemed to communicate in silence. Some were in deep meditation. Others seemed to be talking to beings of light, like the one that accompanied me. Nothing there was in a hurry. Everything moved with a grace that made me forget time. It was a place of rest, but also of preparation. "This is the plane between worlds," said my guide, "where souls rest, learn, heal, and choose their next step." I watched a soul being enveloped by spirals of light that seemed to stitch together fragmented parts of itself, as if he was remembering who he was. "Is this heaven?" I asked mentally. He replied without hesitation, "A part of it, but what many call heaven is much broader. There are layers, dimensions, states of being. This is just one of the portals." Realization hit me like a silent tide. I realized there was a system there, not rigid but subtly organized, not based on dogmas or religious beliefs, but on the evolution of consciousness. I also saw luminous beings moving among souls with love, like ancient mentors. Some looked human, others don't. But everyone had a deeply welcoming presence. My guide then turned to me. "You still haven't seen what you came to see." And at that moment, I felt a different energy, a vibration coming from far away, calling me, like an ancient beat echoing through the ages, ready to reveal something that my spirit, on some level, has been waiting for a long time. We move forward, crossing the transition plane as if we were drops sliding across an invisible surface. The light around him began to change, getting brighter, warmer, almost golden. It was like entering a field where every particle glowed with intent of its own. When the luminous mist dissipated, I found myself facing a vast, infinite space that seemed to be made of liquid gold and vibration. It was a field, without ground, without sky, and at the same time it was all of that. A space where time did not exist, where now was eternal. There, thousands of souls gathered. Some seemed to gather in circles like students receiving ancient teachings. Others were silent with their eyes closed, or perhaps no eyes, absorbing pure knowledge straight from the light. The vibration of the place passed through me like music, a melody that spoke directly to my spirit. And I knew, without anyone having to explain it to me, that place wasn't just a healing station. It was a spiritual wisdom center. "This is the field of souls," said my guide, with a reverence that made my soul shudder. Here they remember who they are, who they always were, and who they can still be. A figure approached us. It was not my guide, but another being made of light, feminine in its energy, wrapped in a cloak of purple and blue tones. She looked at me, or read me, and smiled with the eyes of her soul. "Are you ready to see?" she asked, and for the first time in that experience I felt something like fear. Not because I feared what was to come, but because I intuited that nothing would be the same after this. All around me, souls that had previously been silent began to radiate colors that I had no name to describe. Some seemed to dissolve into pure energy. Others took on humanoid forms again, as if they were preparing for a new cycle. "Is this place what we call heaven?" I thought, more to myself than to them. The answer came like a whisper from within. Heaven is not a place. It is a state of being. Everything started to transform. The golden light of the field began to vibrate at another frequency, and a thick, almost bluish fog rose around us like a veil of memories. My guide extended his hand, or the projection of what I perceived as a hand, and simply said, "What you will see now has been forgotten, but never erased." Mists parted like curtains. Before me appeared a vision so clear and distinct that I could have sworn I was there in person. It was an ancient, immense landscape, with structures that defied understanding. Temples, pyramids, pillars carved with symbols that seemed to sing to the sky. I saw people walking through gardens, their strong bodies covered in simple but beautiful clothes made of natural fibers and shiny ornaments. Their skin was as dark as wet earth, and their eyes, my God, their eyes, seemed to contain entire galaxies. They not only knew, they remembered. I saw children sitting in semicircles around an elder who taught about the stars, not with words but with living energy. I saw men and women invoking light with songs, with gestures, with dances that moved the very air. I saw healings happening through sound. And then, my heart sank. The vision has changed. I saw wars, invasions, libraries being set on fire, statues toppled, manuscripts ripped from hands that resisted. I saw the faces of those people being erased from murals, their stories being rewritten. I saw other men, from other places, assuming their legacies and proclaiming themselves creators of what they had only taken. I knelt down, even without a physical body. The pain of it all was unbearable. "Why is this?" I asked, my soul in tears. My guide responded with a voice that carried sadness and truth. "For the fear of those who still sleep is great, and the light of those who awaken even greater." The fog enveloped us again, and for a moment everything was silent. But I knew the vision wasn't over. It was just the beginning of an even deeper truth. A truth that had been buried, but not dead. The next image did not emerge slowly. She exploded before me like silent thunder. A new sequence of visions took shape, this time even more direct, more visceral. I saw a face, that of a dark-skinned woman with eyes closed, sitting under a gigantic tree. His skin glowed like living obsidian, and his countenance radiated, an ancient strength that made me shudder. She opened her eyes, and when he did, I recognized her. I had never seen her in my life, but there was something about her that struck me. It was like looking into the eyes of truth incarnate. His name came to mind not as information, but as a long-buried memory. Keziah. She looked at me, not with judgment, but with expectation, as if to say, "You see, don't you? Finally." Behind her, others appeared. Men, women, old people, young people, all dark-skinned, all with the same light in their eyes. They formed a kind of circle around a central point, a bluish flame that seemed alive, pulsing. It was wisdom, memory, essence. And then, the image was hacked. I saw shackles, chains, ships, blood. I saw their light being chained, their bodies being raped, their tongues being ripped out. I saw names being erased, beliefs transformed into heresies, smiles being replaced by the silence of humiliation. And most devastatingly, I saw the world forget who they really were. The figure of light beside me enveloped me in energy, once again as if it knew my heart was about to collapse. They were chosen, bearers of the spark that connects everything, but the world feared their light. The word chosen echoed like thunder, not in the sense of superiority but of spiritual responsibility. They were the guardians of the original souvenir, and for that reason, they were systematically erased. I saw maps being redrawn. I saw skin colors being used as barriers. I saw dogma being imposed to keep the masses separate, and the message was clear, tattooed on my soul like fire. The truth about who we are and who they are has been buried, but the earth is already beginning to shake. The next vision hit me like a wave. I saw modern cities, New York, São Paulo, London, with their skyscrapers, crowded streets, honking horns, and hurried faces. But something was wrong. It was as if the sound of the world was muted, as if people were disconnected from themselves, hypnotized by screens, distracted by meaningless conflicts. I saw young faces, many of them direct descendants of those ancient guardians, living without knowing who they were. I saw dark eyes. I saw talent being stifled. I saw schools where children were taught to hate themselves or hide. I saw leaders being built to maintain collective sleep. But then, a spark. In the middle of all that, a dark-skinned boy, alone, leaning against a concrete wall with tears in his eyes. He raised his head. His look changed. I saw something light up inside him. He didn't know where it came from, but remembered. Soon after, a woman on another continent, in a remote village, interrupted her routine to look at the sky. She also remembered, and then another and one more. The spark became a flame. I saw people starting to wonder, what if everything I've been told about myself is wrong? These questions echoed like spiritual bells across the planet, and, with them, the system began to shake. "The awakening has begun," said my guide with solemn firmness. "They don't need you to save them. They just need to remember, and telling them what you saw can help them find the lost thread." The images showed me systems falling apart, ideologies falling apart. I saw a silent, but irreversible, movement of souls finding each other. People previously lost on the margins beginning to occupy the center of their own story. Unity will not come through religion, nor through politics. It will come through truth. These words pulsed through me with unquestionable clarity. The truth was the fuel of awakening. And love, the love that binds everything together, was the true way back. The flame had been lit, and once lit, could no longer be erased. My guide looked at me for the last time, not with goodbye, but with something deeper, like someone handing over a key. You saw it. Now it's your choice. Silence or shine. The surrounding. Light began to dim. The golden field, the faces, the visions, everything seemed to dissolve like mist at dawn. I felt something pulling me back. It wasn't aggressive, but inevitable. It was like being sucked into myself. The sublime peace began to be replaced by an uncomfortable density. The lightness of the spirit gave way to a physical weight that I had already forgotten. Then came the impact, like falling into a body of lead. I came back with violence. My eyes opened, but the hospital's fluorescent light blinded me for seconds. The sounds came as meaningless pops and noises, alarms, voices, rapid breathing. My own body felt strange, disconnected. "Sarah, she's coming back. We have a pulse." A man's voice invaded my mind. It was Dr. Elijah Cross. I recognized his timbre, even without knowing him before. I saw his face leaning over mine, eyes wide, hands shaking. "My God, you came back. You were without vital signs for more than 5 minutes." I couldn't speak. The throat burned. My lungs felt like they were full of fire. Returning to the body was like being hastily sewn together from the inside, flesh and spirit trying to align again. I closed my eyes. Images still danced in my mind. Keziah, the flame, the woman with galactic eyes, the pain, the wisdom, the memory. Everything was still there. And more than that, I knew it wasn't a hallucination. This was more real than anything I had ever experienced in my waking life. As the hours passed and I was stabilized, doctors and nurses pelted me with questions. They did exams, neurological tests, electroencephalograms. They couldn't believe that I had come back without any consequences. But there was an invisible scar inside me, a mark engraved on the soul. And as I recovered, a phrase repeated itself, inside me like an infinite echo. The truth cannot be buried forever. In the days that followed, I tried to put into words what I had experienced. But how do you describe the infinite with a limited vocabulary? I told my sister first. She listened to me in silence and in the end said that it must have been a dream caused by the trauma. I tried telling a doctor friend. He responded to me sympathetically, but his eyes had that gleam of someone who thinks, "I'm dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder." But you knew. You remembered. The images remained vivid. Keziah looked at me in my dreams. The golden field, the guide's words, the faces, the awakening flames. Everything came back in flashes, as if my spirit refused to let it go out. It was on a rainy afternoon that the phone rang. The number was unknown. I answered hesitantly. "We know what you saw." The voice was male, low, emotionless. "Don't talk. This isn't meant to be shared." Before I could react, the line went dead. I stood there still, with my cell phone in my hand, my heart hammering against my chest. A part of me wanted to back away, hide, pretend nothing happened, just being a woman who almost died, who came back and got on with her life. But something inside me refused. The threat didn't scare me. It just confirmed what I already intuited. What I saw, it was real. So real that someone, somewhere, I was afraid it would be said out loud. That night I sat down at my computer, opened a blank document and started writing. I didn't know if anyone would believe it. I didn't know if I would face any more threats. But I knew, with an unshakable certainty, that I couldn't keep this to myself, because this experience wasn't just a personal journey, it was a calling, an invitation, a revelation. And if you're reading this, maybe it's because, like me, you also feel like there's something sleeping inside you, something that needs to awaken. I don't know what will come. I don't know if I will be heard, but I know that. The truth pulses, she breathes, and soon it will be impossible to ignore. and I'm ready. Whatever it takes. If you liked this beautiful spiritual testimony, leave a like, comment on your impressions, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to activate the notification bell to watch each new video and help us spread this message to a greater number of people. Until next time.